The capture. Ethan Cole woke to the taste of copper in his mouth and the low hum of machinery all around him. The air was too clean, metallic, sterile in a way no place on Earth ever managed. He blinked against the pale blue glow of the walls, then realized they weren't walls at all but seamless plates of some kind of alloy, curved and featureless. A cell. He sat up slowly, testing his limbs. No restraints, but the room itself was the prison. The floor vibrated faintly, like the steady pulse of a ship in motion. Wherever he wasn't on Earth anymore. A shadow moved beyond a transparent barrier. Ethan froze. The thing watching him was tall, insect-like, its body armored in dark chitin, eyes faceted and unblinking. It carried a staff tipped with a glowing emitter, a weapon Ethan had no name for. The alien clicked its mandibles once, then stalked away. So it was true. He had been taken. Ethan exhaled slowly, forcing his heartbeat under control. Panic was useless. Information was everything. He scanned the cell. No seams, no locks, but a faint shimmer where the barrier met the wall. Energy field, probably. He leaned back against the cold metal, eyes half-lidded, as if defeated. But behind the act, his mind ran hot. Military training kicked in. Observation first. Patterns, weaknesses, habits. If he was in an alien ship, then it was run by systems, and every system had a fault. Hours passed. The aliens came in pairs, clicking in their strange language, sometimes prodding him with questions through a mechanical translator. Human. Fragile. Comply. He complied, or seemed to. He stuttered, hunched his shoulders, played the part of the helpless abductee. It made them careless. When one guard left a tool on the ground, something like a pronged wrench, Ethan filed the detail away. He couldn't grab it now, not without being noticed, but it told him two things. 1. The aliens weren't perfect. 2. Their tools weren't far beyond his ability to understand. Later, when the lights dimmed and the hum of the ship deepened, he crouched by the barrier. Close up, he noticed a vent high above, almost invisible in the wall. Airflow. Circulation. A way out, if he could reach it. The aliens thought they had a specimen, a fragile creature to prod and dissect. What they really had was a man cataloging every weakness, every oversight, every mistake. Ethan lay back on the metal floor, staring at the ceiling, body still, mind racing. He remembered a phrase his old sergeant used to bark during training: "If you're breathing, you're planning." And Ethan Cole was planning. Tomorrow, he would test the barrier. The next day, he would reach the vent. And after that, he'd find the heart of this ship, and make sure Earth knew what was coming. The Xerath Dominion thought they had a captive. They were wrong. The plan. The second day began with questions. The aliens had dragged Ethan from his cell into a chamber that looked like a laboratory. The walls were lined with translucent pods, each filled with viscous liquid and shapes too vague to identify. Other specimens, perhaps. A massive figure loomed at the far end of the room, taller than the guards, its chitin darker, its mandibles sharper. A commander. The mechanical translator crackled. Human. Weak. Explain Earth defenses. Ethan swallowed and made his voice tremble. We don't have much. Just primitive rockets. Guns. We're not prepared. The commander hissed, mandibles scraping in something like amusement. The guards clicked in response, an insectal laugh. Satisfied, they herded him back to his cell, confident they had broken their new toy. They couldn't have been more wrong. Back inside, Ethan replayed the interrogation in his head. They wanted intelligence, proof Earth couldn't resist. They believed every word because it fed their arrogance. That arrogance was a weapon, one he could sharpen and turn against them. He rose and studied the barrier again. The faint shimmer where it met the wall wasn't uniform. On the right side, near the floor, the glow flickered for the barest fraction of a second every few minutes. A power cycle. No system was infinite. Even alien tech had limits. That night, when the ship's lights dimmed again, he acted. He'd scavenged a sliver of metal from the floor, a fragment left behind after the guards dropped tool. He crouched by the barrier and pressed it into the flickering seam. The shard sizzled, burned his fingers, but the shimmer faltered just long enough for him to push the metal through and wedge it into the joint. The barrier pulsed, then stabilized, but Ethan grinned through the pain. He'd found a way to disrupt it. Not escape yet, but progress. The next morning, he overheard something that chilled him more than any threat. 2 guards stood outside his cell, speaking in their native tongue. Ethan couldn't understand most of it, but the translator clipped in enough words: Earth, fleet, invasion window, soon. So it was true. He wasn't just a curiosity. He was reconnaissance. The Xerath Dominion had already marked Earth for conquest. Ethan sat back hard against the wall, mind racing. If he didn't get out, humanity wouldn't even know what was coming until it was too late. He had no weapons, no allies, no map of the ship, but he had time, and time was something humans had always known how to turn into an advantage. The plan took shape over hours, built piece by piece like a puzzle with half the edges missing. Step 1. Disable the barrier. He couldn't brute force it, but with the shard and the power cycle, he could create an opening, brief, but wide enough to slip through. Step 2. Movement. The vent he'd spotted was high, out of reach. But if he stacked the cell's furnishings, bench, food dispenser, even the bedding panel, he could climb. Step 3. Orientation. He had no idea where the vent led. But any air system had to connect to something: engineering, life support, maybe even a command corridor. Somewhere he could listen, learn, and adapt. It wasn't much, but it was a beginning. And beginnings were all humans needed. That evening, a guard returned, tapping the barrier with its staff. Ethan flinched deliberately, shrinking back like prey. The alien hiss clicked in satisfaction, turned, and left. Ethan smiled once it was gone. He had them convinced. The great Xerath Dominion thought they had tamed him, caged him, broken him. That illusion would buy him time. He lay back down, staring at the vent above. Every system had a fault. Every empire had a blind spot. And every predator eventually underestimated its prey. Tomorrow, he'd push the shard deeper into the barrier's seam. Test its limits. Map the timing of the power cycle down to the second. The day after, he'd climb into the ductwork. And from there, he'd find the ship's heart. Maybe even its command center. He didn't need to destroy the Dominion. Not yet. He only needed one chance to get a signal home. One chance to warn Earth. Ethan closed his eyes and let the hum of the ship fill his ears. To anyone watching, he looked broken, already fading into despair. But behind his stillness, the fire inside him burned hotter than ever. If you're breathing, you're planning. And Ethan Cole was very much alive. The rebellion. The vent was tighter than Ethan had imagined. Metal scraped against his shoulders as he crawled forward, the stale air reeking of oil and alien chemicals. Each breath echoed like thunder in the narrow shaft, but the hum of the ship drowned it out. He'd slipped past the barrier during its power cycle, just 3 seconds of weakness, and wedged himself into the ventilation system before the aliens realized anything was wrong. Now came the hard part, finding where it led. He crawled for what felt like hours, counting turns, noting the faint vibrations beneath him. The hum deepened when he passed above an engine chamber. Lighter, higher tones when he neared command corridors. He filed it all away. A map built in his head, piece by piece. Then he heard voices. He slowed, pressing his ear to the thin alloy beneath him. The translator only caught fragments: captives, compliant, no resistance. Another language, different from the insectoid clicks of the Xerath. He shifted, peered through a grate, and froze. Below him stretched another holding block. But these cells weren't empty. Figures moved in the dim light, 3 distinct shapes. A broad, reptilian creature with scaled armor plating across its shoulders. A lean, bird-like being with feathers dulled from confinement. And something stranger, a crystalline form that glimmered faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. Other prisoners. Other victims. Ethan's pulse quickened. If the Xerath had captured multiple species, they were building more than an empire. They were building a machine of conquest, grinding down civilizations one by one. He couldn't do this alone. He needed allies. That night, when the guards thinned, he pried open the vent grate and dropped silently into the block. The reptilian warrior lunged at him instantly, scales flashing. "Easy," Ethan hissed, raising his hands. "I'm not one of them." The warrior's golden eyes narrowed. You're weak. Soft. A mammal. The avian chuckled bitterly. Another broken thing for the Dominion to toy with. The crystalline being pulsed with faint light, like a sigh. Doomed, its empathic resonance whispered into Ethan's mind. All doomed. Ethan felt the sting of their dismissal, but he held his ground. Maybe. But I'm the only one out of a cell right now. You want to stay rotting in here, or do you want a chance to fight back? That got their attention. The reptilian tilted its head. You. Escape. Impossible. Instead of answering, Ethan crouched by the cell lock. He'd studied these already, energy-based, tied to the same cycles as his barrier. He pulled the metal shard from his pocket, jammed it into the seam, and timed the pulse. A spark, a hiss, and the field collapsed with a flash. The reptilian stepped free, staring in disbelief. How? Ethan smiled faintly. You see a lock. I see a system. Systems fail. You just have to know where to push. The avian leaned forward, feathers twitching. Perhaps this human is not as fragile as he looks. The crystal being pulsed again, faint hope trickling through the air. One by one, Ethan broke them free. Once they stood together in the dim corridor, he laid it out. The Xerath think they've already won. They're arrogant. They underestimate us. That's our weapon. If we move fast, if we hit where they don't expect, we can take this ship. The reptilian snorted. Take it. With claws and sticks. Ethan shook his head. With plans. With sabotage. With every dirty trick they'll never see coming. Humanity's history isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most unpredictable. The alien trio exchanged glances. Skepticism remained, but also a spark of something else. Belief. They began that very night. The avian, small and fast, scouted the corridors ahead, memorizing guard rotations. The crystalline being, sensitive to emotion, projected waves of confusion at passing Xerath, disrupting their focus. The reptilian provided muscle, knocking a guard unconscious when they needed a weapon. Ethan orchestrated it all, each move precise, each risk calculated. Where they saw walls, he saw openings. Where they saw an empire, he saw cracks. Step by step, the rebellion was born. Their first real strike came when Ethan led them to a security relay chamber he'd mapped from the vents. Together, they disabled the force field controls for half the block. Lights flickered, alarms shrieked, and suddenly dozens of other cells opened. More prisoners staggered out, dazed but free. The Xerath swarmed to contain it, but chaos had already bloomed. Ethan's small team vanished back into the ducts, leaving the Dominion scrambling. For the first time, the hunters were uncertain. For the first time, the Xerath felt fear. Ethan crouched in the shadows of the vent, heart pounding, as the freed captives rioted below. The reptilian turned to him, eyes gleaming. You said you had a plan, human. What is it? Ethan smiled grimly. First we take the ship. Then we take our freedom. After that. He looked out at the stars through a narrow viewport, jaw set. We warn Earth. The human advantage. The bridge doors loomed ahead, guarded by 2 Xerath sentinels. Their chitin gleamed under the pale lights, weapons clutched tight, mandibles clicking in restless rhythm. Ethan crouched with his small band in the shadows of the corridor. The freed prisoners had scattered across the ship, turning every hallway into a battlefield. Confusion reigned, alarms blared, lights flickered, voices barked orders that contradicted one another. Exactly as he'd planned. The reptilian warrior flexed his claws. We crush them now. Ethan shook his head. Not with strength. With surprise. Give me 30 seconds. Before the warrior could argue, Ethan was already moving. He darted toward a maintenance panel, pried it open with his shard, and yanked at the glowing conduits inside. Sparks showered the corridor. The guards turned, raising their weapons, then the floor beneath them shuddered. Gravity lurched. The sentinels stumbled as the artificial gravity in the hall reversed, slamming them into the ceiling. Their weapons clattered away. Ethan cut the circuit, and the floor reclaimed them with a bone-crunching thud. He exhaled, adrenaline burning through him. That's how humans fight. Not head-on. We cheat. The avian scout gave a shrill laugh. Remind me never to hunt your kind." Together, they pushed through the bridge doors. The bridge was a hive of activity. Xerath officers clattered across consoles, mandibles snapping in panic. In the center, towering over them all, stood the commander Ethan had seen in the lab. Its eyes burned with recognition the instant it saw him. "Human," the translator rasped. "Defiant. Futile." The commander's staff flared with energy as it advanced. Ethan squared his shoulders, though every instinct screamed to run. "Funny. People have said that about us before." The reptilian charged, claws raking, but the commander swatted him aside like a child's toy. The avian dove from above, wings slicing, only to be caught in a blast of energy that sent it spinning. The crystalline being pulsed, sending waves of disorientation through the bridge, but the commander pressed forward, immune. Ethan was left standing alone. The commander towered over him, weapon humming. "You are one against an empire." Ethan's voice was steady. "One is all it takes, if you've got a plan." He dove sideways, rolling behind a console. The commander's blast scorched the panel, sending sparks raining down. Ethan's eyes flicked to the system's display: navigation, power distribution, weapons arrays. He couldn't read the alien script, but systems were systems. He jammed his shard into the panel and twisted. The bridge lurched as lights dimmed and alarms blared. Starfield outside the viewport spun wildly. He hadn't destroyed anything, but he'd forced chaos. The commander roared, striding toward him, but Ethan had already scrambled across the floor, grabbing a fallen Xerath weapon. It was heavy, awkward, alien, but a trigger was a trigger. He fired. The bolt hit the commander square in the chest. The chitin cracked, sizzling. It staggered but didn't fall. Ethan gritted his teeth. Of course it wouldn't be that easy. The commander raised its staff for a killing blow, then the crystalline being surged forward, bathing the bridge in blinding light. The Xerath crew shrieked, clutching at their heads as waves of psychic agony tore through them. For a heartbeat, even the commander faltered. That was all Ethan needed. He slammed the weapons but into the cracked chitin, drove it deep, and pulled the trigger. The commander convulsed once, then collapsed, lifeless. The bridge fell silent. Ethan stood over the body, chest heaving, smoke rising from the weapon. Slowly, he lowered it and turned to the consoles. His allies staggered back to their feet, battered but alive. He pointed at the navigation controls. "We're not done yet. We set a course for Earth. And we broadcast a warning." The avian tilted its head. "You would risk drawing the Dominion to your home?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "They're already coming. Better my people know what they're facing than die in the dark." With shaky hands, he keyed the transmission. Symbols he didn't understand scrolled across the screen, but when the system confirmed, he allowed himself a thin smile. A signal shot out into the void, racing toward home. For the first time since his capture, Ethan let himself breathe. Around him, freed prisoners stared at him with something approaching awe. "You are small," the reptilian said, limping, "but your mind, it is dangerous." Ethan gave a tired chuckle. "That's humanity for you. We're not the strongest. Not the fastest. Not the fiercest. But we never stop thinking. And we never stop fighting." He glanced down at the fallen commander. The Xerath had thought they'd broken him, thought they'd taken a specimen, a captive. What they'd taken was a human with a plan. And now, the Dominion would learn what that really meant.